What is your best or worst? Don't meet your hero's story. Part 2. Story 1. Met Tobey Maguire at a fan meet and greet back in 2013. I think it was a promotion for the Great Gatsby movie. Looking back, I genuinely felt bad for him because everyone kept asking him about Spider-Man and not the Great Gatsby. He called off the event before I got his autograph because some bumhole wanted him to talk about why Sony canned him for Andrew Garfield. As an adult looking back now, I see why actors get pissed with dump like that. I think with certain actors who are most commonly associated with one role in particular, it sucks knowing that no matter what future roles you take, someone in the theater would point at you and say, "Hey, isn't that Spider-Man?" I've always sympathized with Tobey because of that reason. Story 2. Not sure this is a never meet your hero story, but it's a great example of why you shouldn't always follow that advice. I met Terry Farrell, the actress who played Jadzia Dax on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, at a convention queue and a session when I was 15. She and another DS9 actress, Nana Visitor for the fans out there, were on stage answering questions, and there were 2 lines leading to a microphone on either side of the stage. Well, suddenly on Terry's side, the mic malfunctioned, and without hesitating, Terry got off the stage and started holding out her own microphone to people so they could keep asking questions. Terry even gave an embrace to a 4 to 5-year-old girl ahead of me in line. I got to the front, and there I am, an extremely shy 15-year-old, arm's length away from my childhood role model, in front of several hundred people. I managed to tremblingly say that she is my favorite character in all of Star Trek, and before I can say another word, she gives me a big embrace. I ended up asking her about her favorite episode. Her answer was Blood Oath, for those curious, and went back to my seat. My dad had also bought me a photo opportunity with her later that day, and when I got there, she exclaimed something to the effect of, "Oh, I remember you," and immediately pulled me into another big embrace for the photo. I still have that photo, as well as an autographed photo of her character. Words cannot describe how much that encounter impacted me. I never expected someone who probably met thousands of fans that day to show so much care to one awkward teenager who just wanted to meet her role model like everyone else. Jadzia Dax is everything I wanted to be growing up. She is kind, confident, intelligent, humorous, and adventurous. I still want to be all those things, but more than anything, I hope I can learn to exude even half the kindness that Terry Farrell does. So yeah, sometimes your role models really are role models. Story 3. I have loved Watchmen, the graphic novel, for many years. In July, I worked in a pop culture convention, and one of the guests was John Higgins. I was wary of him, since I was mistreated by many artists. Most of them were unknown, but I treated all of them with the same respect. Yesterday, my shift had ended, and I decided to risk it, and went to speak with him. He was lovely, couldn't have been nicer, and talked with me for a while. Gave me an autograph and took a selfie with me. Story 4. Okay, so I was obsessed with this Hollywood actress. You know, the one who plays those quirky, relatable characters in all those indie films. Yeah, her. She was always posting about body positivity, mental health awareness, and just generally being a good human. I followed her religiously on Instagram, like every post, the whole shebang. So when I found out she was doing a small Q&A at a local bookstore, I was beyond excited. I got there early, waited in line, and when it was finally my turn, I was a nervous wreck. I told her how much her online presence meant to me, how she inspired me to be myself. She gave me this tight fake smile, mumbled a thanks, and then immediately turned to the next person. It was like I was just another number. Then, I saw her later, after the Q&A, talking to some other people. She was completely different, dismissive, almost rude. I even overheard her complaining about annoying fans. It was like a switch flipped. The whole experience left me feeling empty. Like, all those heartfelt posts were just a performance, a way to build her brand. It made me realize how carefully curated social media is, and how you can't always believe what you see online. I still enjoy some of her movies, but I definitely don't look at her the same way. Story 5. I've loved Alan Cumming since the very start of his career. I saw his first TV appearance with Forbes Masson. Fast forward almost 30 years, I've moved to the USA and met my now husband, who casually mentioned that he knows another Scottish guy, yep, you guessed it, Alan Cumming. We met up with Alan when he came to town to perform, and despite him just coming off stage and exhausted, he was incredibly friendly and delighted to meet me and the kids. We eat together anytime he's in the area and have met up with him in New York. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he adores our kids. He has sent them wee videos on their birthday a few times too. Just a wonderful guy. Story 6. Not mine, but a friend's. Jason Alexander, George from Seinfeld, came to give a guest lecture on acting at the university my friend attended. My friend was on his way to class when he ran into Jason Alexander, who had just finished up his lecture. Instead of saying, "You're George from Seinfeld," my friend said, "Holy crap, you're Jason Alexander." Jason Alexander heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Nobody remembers my name. It's always George this, Festivus that." "No what, kid? Why he had lunch together?" And my friend says, "Oh sorry, I'm late for class," and took off for biology. He gets to class, sits down, and suddenly realizes he just turned down lunch with Jason Alexander. Don't meet your heroes because sometimes you're really dumb, and they'll see it. Story 7. When I was a kid, I was super into Broadway and musical theater. My dream was to be on Broadway. So for my 9th birthday, my mom got us tickets to see Wicked on Broadway in New York with most of the original cast. This was a huge trip for us, as we lived on the West Coast. My mom had mentioned to someone working at the show that it was her daughter's birthday, and that Idina Menzel was my hero. This was before Frozen, and before she was as big of a name as she is now. Somehow this person brought us backstage after the show to meet the cast. Everyone backstage was very kind and sweet to me, except Idina Menzel. Kristen Chenoweth was super awesome, and Joey McIntyre was really nice and tried to cheer me up. But Idina wouldn't come out of her dressing room. I'd had to hear her tell Joey, through her dressing room door, that she didn't care about some kid and to leave her the heck alone. The 9-year-old me was crushed, and even though the others were kind and did their best to salvage the situation, I lost interest in musical theater after that. Story 8. I've worked in the entertainment industry since 2010, and in that time, I've been fortunate enough to encounter some wonderful people and unfortunate enough to discover who are unpleasant behind the scenes. Best? Working as a lighting technician for World Wrestling Entertainment in Sydney about 10 years ago, I had quickly stepped outside for a break near the end of the show while I had some free time. Backstage is quite dark. There aren't many normal lights, mostly blue lights just bright enough that you can find your way around. This is so there isn't bright light shining from behind any curtains or tunnels facing into the venue during the show. I had about 10 minutes to get back inside, run around to where my team was waiting, and get them standing by to pack up the show once it ended. As I ran into one of the tunnels towards my team, I bumped shoulders with someone walking out towards the loading dock/parking lot. Immediately I just say, "Excuse me, I didn't see you." I look up, and it's John Cena. He literally patted my hair, chuckled, asked my name, shook my hand, and then walked off. I physically bumped into John Cena and told him I didn't see him. The realization of that being what happened once I got to my team left me feeling all sorts of awkwardness. But he was polite, took the time to actually acknowledge me, and seemed sincere. Worst? No, that's a hard one. It's a tie between Slash from GNR taking nearly 2 hours to practice guitar riffs and being displeased at everyone around him, saying he sounded poor and it was dragging on. Nobody wants to hear the opening notes to Sweet Child O' Mine played badly over and over, like it's a guitar lesson. Bam Margera being inconsiderate to people and a drunken nuisance to younger girls at a festival. Mind you, everyone paid for tickets to meet the artists at these festivals, all proceeds going to charity. And this person was up there taking all the attention and just genuinely being a mess of a human. That being said though, he did promise to find us in the crowd later at one of the smaller stages. And he kept that promise by running through my group of friends and yelling, "Get in there, folks," before disappearing into a mosh pit. Mariah Carey stepped out of her dressing room in a towel to stop myself and another team member moving cases to a truck, mid-load out of her show, demanding we take her bags to her car that's waiting. When we told her sorry, we can't do that as it's not our job, and we aren't clear to even be communicating with her, she basically became upset and said we wouldn't work on her next show in another state. I'm guessing she assumed we were touring team. We were not. So no concerns. Carry your own bags. I'm sure if I really thought about it, there would be better and worse memories, but for now, this is what came to mind. Story 9. I met John Cena when I was 16. I have been a massive fan of his since he started in the World Wrestling Entertainment. It was my first time ever really meeting a celebrity. Nothing exactly bad happened, but I made a joke. Can't remember it now, but it wasn't inappropriate or anything. And he just sort of looked at me straight-faced. His manager laughed at least. I was a bit embarrassed and didn't want to meet another celebrity again for years till I met Jason Momoa by accident. He was awesome. Story 10. I was a huge science enthusiast in high school, so of course I admired Do-Mai. I thought he was amazing for how he made science more accessible to everyone. My love of science led to me becoming an astronomy major in college during the late 90s and very early 2000s. At that time, one of my astronomy professors informed me that Bill Nye had been hired to be the main speaker at my university's engineering open house, then asked if I'd like to be one of Bill's college guys for the day. I was so excited to agree. I first realized I was in for a difficult time when one of Bill Nye's assistants showed up early to brief us. He told us to not take anything Bill says personally, and that Bill is generally unpleasant to everyone. Bill Nye arrived very late and inebriated, and he refused to do the full science presentation he had been contracted to do. He had been paid to present for a full hour, but he argued loudly that he wouldn't do more than 15 minutes. Bill made a few unkind comments about women in science towards me, suggesting that I was in astronomy just to find a partner. Then he started getting aggressively rude towards the young children who were excited to see him. Eventually, he ended up yelling at a 5-year-old to go away, while mic'd up in front of an entire gymnasium of people. At that point, college officials asked Bill to leave even though he'd been there for only a short time. To this day, I'm honestly shocked at how many people still love and admire Bill Nye, as I've heard so many similar Bill Nye is unpleasant stories over the years. Story 11. I met Robin Williams while working on a comedy show, and he couldn't have been more kind and friendly, with me gushing about how I wore out his first comedy album on vinyl and had to buy another one. He said, "Your parents must have been pretty cool. Most of them would catch pantomimes breaking a record over his knee." After the first day of the shoot, all his camera operators had to be told to back off Robin, because we all wanted to be around him, and we had too much footage of him already. He spent a lot of time talking to fellow legend Mort Saul. Story 12. I'm a huge fan of The Wire. In my opinion, the greatest show ever made by a mile. I admire all of the cast, but Wendell Pierce in particular. Not just for his portrayal of Bunk, but he's done a lot of great humanitarian work too. I was at an event and saw that he was also in the audience. I normally try to leave celebrities alone, figuring that they just want to be treated like a normal person when out in public. But in this case, I couldn't resist. After the event, I went over and said hello and told him how much I appreciated his work. He was completely gracious and humble. Insisted that I call him by his first name, asked me mine. After chatting for a bit, he asked me what I did for work. I told him I'm a structural engineer. He then wanted to know my full name. I told him, "You're my name?" He exclaimed, "We were just talking about you at dinner last night." He had had dinner with one of my clients the previous night and was so impressed by a structure I had designed that he asked the client who had designed it. Now, I am not a famous engineer by any stretch, if there even are any. It was just an amazing bit of luck, plus the fact that he's a genuinely great guy. Story 13. I met Eminem in Denver once and he told me if I came to his show, we'd meet up afterwards. I took my little bro with me, and we waited for him for 4 hours in the blistering cold. And when he saw us, he just said no. I know he didn't miss me. He did that thing intentionally just to diss me. Story 14. Alright, so this is a good one. Back in my struggling musician days, I was playing a dive bar in Los Angeles. It was a Tuesday night, the place was practically empty. Suddenly, this guy walks in, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. He sits at the bar, orders a drink, and starts listening to my set. I didn't think much of it at first. After my set, he comes up to me and says, "Hey man, you got a good sound." Turns out, it was Keanu Reeves. Yeah, that Keanu Reeves. He was super chill, just hanging out, talking about music. He even asked if he could sit in on the next set. We ended up jamming for like an hour, playing some blues, some rock, just having a good time. It was surreal. Here's this huge movie star jamming with me in a dive bar. He was genuinely interested in the music, asking questions, and just being a regular dude. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It really showed me that even the biggest celebrities can be down to earth and genuinely passionate about things outside of their fame. Story 15. I always dreamed of working with this particular director, the one known for their visually stunning and emotionally complex films. They were a legend in the industry, and I was thrilled when I got an internship on their latest project. The reality, however, was a stark contrast to my expectations. The director was a tyrant, constantly berating the crew, changing their mind on a whim, and creating an atmosphere of fear and anxiety. One day, I was tasked with delivering a message to them on set, and they completely tore me apart in front of the entire crew for a minor miscommunication. The humiliation was unbearable. I ended up quitting halfway through the project. It was a harsh lesson about the difference between admiring someone's work and actually knowing the person behind it. Talent doesn't excuse cruelty. I learned that some people are brilliant, but they're also deeply unpleasant. Story 16. I've been a long-time admirer of a certain big celebrity. They write the most amazing fantasy novels. I joined a book club when I heard they were doing a small signing in Kyiv and I was so excited. I even brought a first edition of their first book. When I was called up, I asked a question about the symbolism in the book. The celebrity looked at me with a blank expression and said, "I have no idea what you are talking about." Then they turned to the next person. I was so embarrassed. I had read all their books, and I felt like a fool. I decided to give up on meeting my heroes after that. It was a reminder that sometimes the people whose work you admire aren't the people you want to meet. Story 17. A doctor whose books I read during undergrad and I attended his lectures looked up to him. During my postgraduate degree, I got a chance to work under him and realize what dumb-hole the guy was, does not practice nor believe in anything he preaches. Story 18. Met Martin Short in an alley in Los Angeles on his way in to shoot that Jersey Shore spoof he did on some late-night talk show. Nicest guy in the world, told security to back off, and that he had all the time in the world to talk to the people who put him where he was that day. Took pictures, signed stuff, and just chatted like a normal human being. A family friend of mine kept calling him Marty, and he never corrected him. Seemed to get a kick out of it, lol. Bid the most respectful thank you and goodbye when time really did run out, and he was at risk of missing his call time or whatever. Story 19. I went on some dates with a guy I didn't realize was one of my favorite science writer authors. I knew he had the same name, but I didn't realize they were the same guy. Turns out he was a real jackass, and some other things. It ended when I was in a car accident, and I called him to let him know, and he said, "So, how is that my problem?" Story 20. I saw Nick Offerman do a show at a theater with his wife Megan, followed by a book signing afterward. So the show ended fairly late, and it was a theater full of people waiting in line to get a book signed, so it was obviously going to take a long while. Nick was the best. He chatted with everyone, didn't rush anyone along, stayed until after midnight to make sure he talked to everybody and got them a book. About halfway through the line, he recognized a couple ladies and brought them out. He announced something like, "Sorry everyone, I just need to stop for a moment because these two are royalty. This is so-and-so. They did the wardrobe for me on Parks and Rec, and I haven't seen them since," and shared some brief memories of them working together. The ladies were so excited he remembered them and made them feel extra special. I'm glad Nick lived up to and exceeded my expectations.
That's a wrap for this video. Make sure to leave your relatable story down in the comments. I would love to make a video on them. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.